When I'm playing an improvised solo on my tenor saxophone or my alto saxophone, I'm not really improvising. And what I mean by that is I'm not really making stuff up off the top of my head. A lot of a lot of players will tell you that they are. This is simply not true. This is not the way that it works. An improvised solo is really an act of composition using elements that we have practiced and practiced and practiced in rooms just like this one. This is my little music studio. I come in here and I practice things, and we'll get to that in a minute because I know you're asking yourselves, well, what do I practice? A lot of times, improvisation is taught by, and if you're in a school situation, I mean no disrespect, but quite often improvisation is taught by people who don't actually improvise or don't play solos or don't create solos. What we do as improvisers is practice ideas that we will then stitch together in a moment's notice on the fly in a situation with the band. This applies to jazz, blues, rock, country, whatever music you play. Creating a solo is an act of composition. It's not all coming off the top of your head, and you're not making it up as you go. You're combining elements, but I know what I'm going to play. In fact, it's been said before that Charlie Parker, who did just the legendary alto sax player, who created so much that we use to this day, knew what he was going to play, knew where he was going, right? That doesn't mean he wrote it out. That doesn't mean that at all. What it means is he knew harmonically where the music was going to change and what he was going to do in that. The chords change as a song progresses, okay? So, again, going back to what I said a little bit earlier, a lot of times this material is taught by well-meaning educators who really don't know how to or haven't improvised. Such was the case when I was in high school. By the grace of the gods of music, I landed in a high school that had an amazing jazz band in it, and I landed there. It was really about the players who were there, because when we all graduated, that program kind of shriveled up and dried and went away. It was never again. But that year, those 3 years I was there, people still talk about that, and we really kicked some booty, and it was just luck and timing that I was there. But the teacher, the person who taught that, was a great administrator, person who knew how to get grant money and buy us original charts, which was key. Secondly, knew how to promote the band and how to keep interest so that we had transportation and the fees to get into all the festivals that we won up and down the coast of California. Knew how to put all that together, right? But he could not teach us how to solo, how to play an improvised solo. And he had no idea. And he would just yell at us, just play, just play, just play. Well, the solo chairs already knew how coming in. They already knew how to do that. They already knew how to play solos, right? And so, and they had, I suppose, had lessons and practiced and studied and all that sort of thing. We came in from different backgrounds. In fact, I didn't really even know what jazz was. I'd never heard it in my home until I got to high school. I had played in rock bands from the sixth grade on. I'd been in rock and roll bands, and my approach to the saxophone was much different than it would eventually become, right? Jazz is a little more complicated, a lot more going on there, a lot more moving parts, right? So, what the advice that is given quite honestly and frequently to beginning improvisers in a middle school or a high school situation is just play a blues scale, right? And nothing wrong with that idea. It's a safety net. It's the shallow end of the swimming pool if you're learning how to swim. There's an analogy. It's the starter kit, right? Excuse me, the blues scale. Nothing wrong with that. And it's a great scale to have in all 12 keys, all right? 12 keys, yep. dozen keys. It's a great scale to know. It's basically related to the minor pentatonic scale. It has one extra note. Pentatonic scales have 5 notes, and I don't want to lay a lot of theory on you, especially those of you who are, new to this art. So I'm not going to do that. You can find out what all this stuff is, and in fact, I will link you to a YouTube video I recorded much earlier about the scales that you need to know. And there are only a few of them, but they'll get you through every situation. The blues scale, once again, now is a minor pentatonic scale, a 5-note scale with an extra note. All right, we stick a chromatic passing note between the 4th and the 5th notes in the pentatonic scale. So the pentatonic starts out with the root, right, the lowest note. Let's just say C minor pentatonic, excuse me, C, and we're going to play the root, which is the C, flat 3rd, okay, 4, 5, and a flat 7. But to turn that into a blues scale, we'll have the root C to an E flat, that's the flat 3rd, right? 4, right, which is an F. The 5 is a G. We're going to put a G flat or an F sharp, if you will, in between the F and the G, and the flat 7, a B flat, right? So I hope I got that right. Anyway, I'm working here before coffee. That's the blues scale, and you can mess around with that. Play it. You don't have to play it up and down and back and forth. In fact, the Aebersold books advise you to start and just play the first few notes. Goof around with it rhythmically. All right. That is always a great place to start. But if I were to give you my best advice, if you're beginning at this craft and you really want to learn it and you want to get better at it, learn melodies. Get one of these. Get a real book. Okay, they come in all keys. I'm just holding up the E flat. This is the E flat real book. You can get these online, by the way, so that you can read them on your tablet. You don't have to carry this big, phone book around with you. Obviously, I've had mine for a long time. It's falling apart. I would say melody, learning, memorizing jazz heads. And you can also go online and look up the 10 most important jazz melodies. Head is a jazz lingo for the melody, right? The melody is the part that, you can sing. You can sing along to the copyrightable part of the song. The harmony, melody and the harmony is the chord changes that move along, that move the melody along, right? So memorize as many songs as you can. If you're really getting into this and getting serious about it, that's a place to start. That in your major scales, right? What do I practice? Well, when I sit down to practice, I'm going to work on melodies that I need to know. For example, a guitar player I worked with said, go home and learn O Grande Amor. So I dialed up the Stan Getz version of that, and I've memorized that. I've been working on that, recording it, playing it back, and listening to myself, and I've got it committed to memory. This is really the best thing that you can do, is commit as many songs to memory as you can. Now, I don't necessarily care what songs they are, as long as you're committing them. Again, you can work out of the real book, get off the page as soon as you can, commit it to memory, or use your ear. Look up stuff on YouTube, that great vast basement of wonderful songs, and learn things by ear. That'll be even better training for you, okay? So if you're new to this, practice your major scales, all 12 of them, okay? Gotta have those down. And then, we'll talk about arpeggiating them later. That's in a different exercise. But today I really wanted to get, over that we're not making stuff up on the fly when we improvise a solo. In fact, improvisation only happens when I goof up. I completely lose track of where I am or whatever, and I have to fix a problem. Then I'm going to improvise like heck. But when I'm doing a solo, I know I'm playing things. Dave Liebman, great saxophone player, said you cannot play on the bandstand stuff you haven't practiced. We practice all these ideas, and I'm going to tell you what I practice. I'll work on arpeggios. I'll work on maybe even a classical piece of music. I'll work out of the Closet's book, 25 Daily Studies for Saxophone. I've got a number of pieces of material. I go over stuff that I'm supposed to know, and I'll also practice improvising. I'll set up, I'll get some backing tracks together. iReal Pro is a source, or you can find lots of those on YouTube. I'll play along to the song that I'm supposed to be learning. And I'm, perhaps that's a little bit more advanced. A couple of really good books for those of you who are in the mid grade and learning to, wanting to get better faster. And I think this is all kind of going to be backwards for you, but this is How to Improvise. This is by Hal Crook. Hal Crook, Crook. This is a great book. It's full of all kinds of ideas. A little bit wordy, a lot of information in there. Maybe too much, maybe overkill, but you're going to find so much stuff in here that'll help you to learn how to improvise, right? Another book that helps you with learning jazz language. Yes, jazz, music in general is a nonverbal language. Jazz language needs to be in your solo in order for us to understand what you're doing. And this is getting a little bit more intermediate. Get this book, right? This is an amazing book, Elements of the Jazz Language for the Developing Improviser, and this is by Jerry Coker. All right, I'll put links to these in the comments. A couple of things that you can do and work on. So that's what I would work on. I would practice improvising. I'm going to practice my arpeggios. I'm going to make sure I'm tight on all my scale work. And I'm going to, go through things that I'm, going to work on with other musicians. Other musicians, yes, practice buddies, people. You want to do this with other people. You want to play. Try these ideas out with people, right? With people that you can play with. I don't care if they play the same instrument. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. 2 saxophones in a room is just fine, right? Or maybe, a guitar player or a piano player, whatever. But I wanted to just backpedal a little bit here and finish up by saying improvisation is not the craft of making stuff up on the fly. It is the craft. A solo is composing, all right? Elements that we know. When you start to memorize music and you commit that to memory and you've got it inside you and you have all these songs inside of you now, you have got a library of language that you can call on. And you could fine tune that by using some of the books I've talked about. Study with somebody that solos the way that you think that you'd like to hear. And remember, of course, that in the school systems that we're involved in, you can have some real good bands taught by people that have no clue how to improvise. So they're going to tell you play a blues scale. Sure, once again, that's the starter kit. Use the blues scale. Use parts of it. Mess around with it. Play it in ways that are interesting. Memorize the melody of the song if you can, that you're going to be playing composing this improvised quote-unquote solo for. The final thing I'm going to tell you, and I'm burning up 13 minutes of your time here, so I appreciate every one of you and all of you for being here, is that listen. I mean, listen to as much music as you can. I don't care what you listen to. When my students showed up this morning, I had on cowboy western songs. After that, I followed up with mariachi. It doesn't just listen. And I want you to be a super careful listener. Listen to saxophone players. Listen to trumpet players. Listen to guitar players. The great B.B. King says he learned how to play blues by listening to saxophone players like Louis Jordan. Listen, 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 and listen some more, okay? Listen carefully. I want you to hear what's going on in that stuff. And you don't need to take a class in listening. You can do that. You just put some music on. That's all you got to do. That's kind of one thing that a lot of us who are emerging into music are not doing. I'm not hearing my students listening enough, or learning from listening. So that is the final step. The final thing. The practice, right, begins with active listening, not passive listening. Okay. You have any questions? DaveGoodSax@gmail.com. If you want to do a Zoom lesson, I got you covered. DaveGoodSax@gmail.com. Check my website out for more information about me. Links below. And I'll link you to that scale study thing I did a while ago. Anyway, I always appreciate your comments, and I hope that this is of value to you. Subscribe if you like, and I'll catch you next time. That's all I got. I'm gone.